Hello, a very warm welcome to season 10 of We Are Careers. We can hardly believe it. Here we are over 3 years later, season 10 of the show. And now, if you're watching this for the first time and you're like, I'm here, what on earth is We Are Careers? A very warm welcome. So we are your fortnightly snippet of CPD for career development professionals working across the sector with clients, organizations of all different shapes and sizes. And our idea really is to kind of tackle some of the big topics, big issues affecting the career development sector, and to give you that kind of bite-sized chunk of CPD you can take with you away from your lunchtime break. So if you've not come across me before, my name is Chris Webb. I'm a higher education careers professional, and I'm also an RCDP with the Career Development Institute. And I'm joined, as always, by my fantastic co-host, Meet Sabiha. So Sabiha, here we are, season 10. How are you feeling?
Oh my gosh, I know, season 10, 3 years in. Where did the time go, Chris? I remember us talking about this and this just being a small idea, and look at where we've got to now. And we have got a fantastic season 10 coming up for you. I know many of you reach out to us either on LinkedIn or various other platforms, and we love it. We appreciate it. So please keep dropping those DMs and those comments every time we post about the show. On whatever platform that you watch us on. And welcome to those of you that are watching for the first time, or perhaps you're one of our regular viewers. Let us know in the chat. And today's topic, I'm just going to give a little bit of an intro before I kind of give you a little bit of a tease of what we've got coming up for the rest of the season in season 10, is we're going to be talking about what's the best way to help our clients plot a way forward following a career conversation. And we're going to be sharing with you some of our favorite tools and techniques for action planning. And you, yes, you, the audience who are watching right now, whether you're watching live with us or you're watching on the replay, join in the conversation. Use that chat box, that comment box below you, and start engaging with us and letting us know what's your favorite career action planning tool or technique. What works for you in your practice? And also as well, let us know what kind of client group are you working with, and what has been your journey, and what are some of the challenges that you've sort of experienced when it comes to helping your clients plot a way forward following a career intervention with yourselves. Now, I did say I'd give you a little bit of a teaser, so let me tell you, you sent us information, you sent us feedback, whether that was in the Facebook community or on LinkedIn or any of the other platforms, and we listened. And we also took on board some of the feedback from fabulous team that support us behind the scenes, because there is a team behind us that supports us to kind of get these shows live and up and running. And here on screen, you'll see Chris is showing you what we've got coming up in season 10. And there's a broad spectrum of topics and themes that we're going to be covering, ranging from, here we go. Today, we're going to be doing action planning. We've got university versus apprenticeship. We're going to be looking at AI and career development, what that looks like. We're going to be looking at equality, diversity in the CDI, a topic and a theme that we've been following quite extensively over the last few seasons. And we're going to be doing a catch-up. Got careering around the world, LMI, doing data LMI differently, and business, and how we can engage in the business community. So those is what we've got coming up for you. Now, I can just see in the chat as well, welcome. I just want to bring in, we have got people from across the globe watching us, and we love the fact that this show has an international vibe with it. So welcome, it's great to see you. We've got Glasgow, Gambia, Nottingham. Yes, it's super windy where I am as well. But it's great to have you all here today. Now, for our regular viewers and for those of you that are new, there's a segment that we do in our show, because one of our aims of setting up this show was about celebrating the depth and breadth and the diversity of the amazing career professionals that Chris and I have the privilege of meeting on a regular basis, who do amazing work. And so we call this the Careers Cheers part of our show. But before I get into that, I do want to remind you, for those of you that are watching and you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please do hit that subscribe button, particularly if you're not a CDI member. We want to make sure that you get regular reminders of when we go live and the topics that we're going to, covering as well. And the last segment, once after we've completed the discussion for today and we've engaged and we've explored the theme, we have the news section. And in this week, I've got some 3 great, amazing CDI updates, which includes a teaser video with a new CDI website that's being launched very soon. I've also got the CDI conference for career professionals, dates to help you get inspired ideas for your development and for your CPD. And then also as well, I've got an update from the CEO, the latest political efforts that are happening behind the scenes to raise the profile within our industry and beyond. For those of you that don't know me, I'm known as Meet Sabiha, and I work internationally helping young professionals get unstuck and get back into career flow without the stress. I'm also the creator of the I Am Thriving Career Coaching Program, where I work with other international coaches to help them create transformation and even more impactful coaching transformational sessions. Now, careers cheers. You just heard me mention that. Now, this week, I want to kickstart off. Normally, Chris does this, but this week, I'm going to kickstart it off because I got a DM a few days ago from none other than one of our regular viewers, Liz McGuire. Hello, Liz McGuire. If you are watching us right now, I'm hoping you are. If you are, pop it in the chat. Let us know. And she wanted to give a careers cheers out to none other than my amazing co-host, Chris Webb, for the incredible work that he's doing with his LinkedIn newsletter. Now, if you haven't already seen it, Chris, remind us, how many subscribers now and how many people are reading the newsletter now?
We are not far off 3,000 subscribers now, which is great. So I'm very, very happy with that. And yeah, very grateful to Liz for the nomination. Not sure it's entirely deserved, but yeah, I'll happily take it. So.
Well, I will second Liz, and I will say it is definitely worth a read. I know definitely on a Friday, I will always nosy on over there. And perhaps maybe one of Chris's 3,000 followers, subscribers, perhaps you're watching right now. If you are, use the chat box feature, let us know. And then who else have we got, Chris? I can see Chris is blushing now. He wants to be like, come on, Smith, move it along,
move it along. Moving on from this shameless self-promotion. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, a few different kind of careers cheers today to kind of throw in. First of all, I just want to take a step back and talk about some of our hashtags. So again, this is something that we share every episode, every series. But Dave Caudle and Liz Reese, who kind of do a lot of work behind the scenes for the show and also for the CDI and the Facebook community of practice, which I'll flash up on the screen now. I've got a couple of hashtags that they're promoting out on a monthly basis, which they just want to make people aware of. If you've not come across the Facebook community of practice before, what are you waiting for? If you're a CDI member, we now have, I think, something around the region of 1,500 plus members on there, or kind of at least kind of getting close to that. A fantastic community just for sort of asking questions generally, issues that might be affecting you as a careers professional. It's a really big network and kind of brain trust to sort of draw on there. So great community if you've not come across it. And on there every month, there are a kind of series of hashtags, or two hashtags particularly, that are being used. One is the careers impact hashtag, which people may remember. It's about kind of sharing stories about the impact that we have as careers professionals, maybe stories, anonymized stories about clients that we've supported or organizations we've supported. And those are things that the CDI can also then use, if you're happy for them to use, to promote the profession more widely. And there's a new hashtag that's also being used on the community of practice, which is Reflect Back Friday, which is, again, all about thinking, what's kind of been happening in our practice, maybe what's been happening over the past sort of month. Are there kind of particular lessons we can take from that, successes that we can kind of share with the community, and maybe sort of beyond as well, to demonstrate the impact of the work we do. So do check out those hashtags if you're on the Facebook community, and if not, please do join. And then our two other careers cheers for this week. First one goes to Caroline Green. Again, this was another nomination from Liz McGuire, so thank you, Liz. Very active on the nominations. And this is really to say to Caroline, a massive thank you for driving forward the Careers and Careers Celebration Festival that's helping to raise the profile of the sector and celebrate the careers community. Now, if you've not come across this event yet, it is taking place on the 14th of November. You can sign up via the link that is appearing on the screen now. There are a really great kind of array of speakers, lots of different topics being covered, lots of sort of very topical issues affecting the career development sector, some stuff around AI, some stuff around kind of working with different types of client groups, raising the profile of the sector and how we do that. And there are also going to be some awards, the first ever Careers and Careers Awards that Caroline set up as well. So do check out the event, do get your ticket in, purchase your ticket, while you can. All the information you need is on the link that's on the screen. But a massive careers cheers to Caroline for that. And our final careers cheers this week goes out to Danny Mertzer. So Danny, if you've not come across him, is lead consultant for the talent team at Coventry University. He's just started there recently, and has been doing a lot of great work over the past few months in terms of providing practical examples for careers professionals that basically they can use to leverage artificial intelligence tools like ChatGPT and Claude in their practice. Really engaging speaker, really practical in what he does. And he also happens to be one of our guests later in the season. So a bit of a shameless plug again, but a massive careers cheers to Danny for all the work he's doing in that space, particularly if you work in the HE careers sector. So those were our careers cheers for the week.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you for that, Chris. And I can see that there's some comments coming through on some of the things that you've been sharing, that I've been sharing, that people are resonating with. We've got definitely fans of exactly, I was about to say, the Facebook community. We've got quite a few people that are engaging with us in the comments right now. And keep those comments coming through, talking about how fantastic it is. And also as well, we've also got an acknowledgement from North Hampshire Careers, also fantastic, loving the CDI career development professional community, but also as well giving a shout out to you, Chris, as well, about how she loves the benefit of having your newsletter as a resource, because it saves her time. And I'm the same. I'm absolutely the same. Honestly, it's like if I want to know what's happening and that's why I love the show as well, because at the end of the show, Chris, as always, at the end of the show, after I've done my CDI news wrap up, Chris will be giving us sort of kind of set wide wrap up as well. So make sure that you stay tuned till the end. And as I say, always, because there'll be some great stories and some great feedback as well, whether or not the training could be shared via emails. Okay. The show, I'm not sure if that question is asking whether or not this particular program can be shared via email. The resource is available on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and if you're part of the Facebook community, automatically you can watch as many times as you want to and benefit from the content. There you go. Chris is putting the link on there. So, Chris, now that we've done the cheers, shall we dive into today's topic? And we want to hear from you all that are watching us right now as well around this question, which is what's the best way to help our clients plot a way forward following a careers conversation? We want to hear from you about what are some of the careers tools and techniques that you are using for action planning? What works, what hasn't worked, and what have you done to pivot to sort of kind of create that engagement? And I always think that when we're doing a topic like this, Chris and our viewers, that it's important that we sort of kind of start with the foundation. And particularly for those of you perhaps maybe that are new to the sector, and maybe you're a student career professional that has just started some training program, whether that's an apprenticeship, NVQ, GMVQ, perhaps maybe at university, deciding to pursue this route. And you might be thinking, career tools, action planning, what is that? Well, back in March 2021, none other than the fabulous, our sort of kind of support team, Liz Reese, wrote a briefing paper on the exact topic in which she explains the background to what action planning is, what the process can look like, and good practice tips. And, I'm just going to sort of kind of read out from that briefing paper. And I know Chris is going to put on screen, where you can sort of access, there you go, where you can access a copy of that. And so in the briefing paper, Liz's description, and I'm quoting her here now as I share this, career action planning is a process following on from an improved understanding of self and options. It's an important part of any goal setting or problem solving, which can relate to what the client wants to achieve. And I'm going to leave it there because this document is honestly jam-packed. And if you haven't come across it and you haven't got access to it, if you're a CDI member, it's absolutely free of charge to access. And I highly recommend it. And hello, Leanne. I'm going to be talking about you shortly because she also gets a nod in this briefing paper. And I'm going to talk about some of the techniques that I use inspired by Leanne and her co-author, Kira, as well. Kara. So now that we've sort of established what is action planning, Chris, how do we want to sort of kind of delve into this? What's going to be the first question that we're putting to ourselves and the audience?
Yeah, so I think when we were kind of thinking about this, and we've done a couple of these sort of career tools sessions before, we've looked at kind of what's in our career toolkit, what do we use, those type of things. But we'd had some requests, and action planning, I think, is quite a kind of popular one that came up. I think partly because it's something that both kind of careers practitioners and clients can often find challenging, as part of kind of a guidance intervention. So it's Leanne's kind of alluding to this in the chat at the moment, which is really interesting, that perhaps there's maybe a stereotypical view of what action planning is and what it involves. And actually it's so much more than that. So it's really interesting to see that come in the chat as well. And I'll flash that up on the screen in a second. So I think the first question, I guess, is why do we feel that maybe kind of the action planning element of a careers conversation or of a guidance intervention is challenging? Why might it be challenging to clients, and what have we kind of seen in our experience, not just ourselves, but also to you as well, the audience? What have we seen that maybe makes it perhaps a little bit more challenging? So I guess over to you first, Sabiha. What are your kind of thoughts on that question, really? Is action planning something that you find challenging as a practitioner? Do your clients find it challenging?
Okay, so I don't know if this is going to resonate with anybody that's watching right now. And if it does, let me know. Join in the conversation with Chris and I. I love this part of the career conversation. It is, I have to say, it's one of my most favorite parts of the conversation. And so I revel in it. It's kind of like the juicy part for me. So I like to devour it and sort of kind of explore it. And as sort of kind of Leanne pointed out, it's different for different clients. So I just want to kind of take on board and how I want to sort of answer that question in more sort of kind of, in a sort of kind of framework, if there is such a thing, is using the three-stage model that Liz speaks about in her briefing paper. So if I start off with sort of stage one, where Liz talks about, establishing needs, agreeing purpose, agreeing ground rules, just to give a little bit of context of the client group that I work with, because I appreciate that what works in my coaching practice might not necessarily work in your coaching practice. So for me, I'm sharing these ideas to inspire you to say, hey, okay, this is how Meet Sabiha does it. How can I take some of this? Or perhaps maybe you're already doing aspects of what I'm going to be sharing in a second. And you go, okay, yep. And it's just giving that validation and an affirmation that, yes, there's other professionals, other practitioners who are following a similar sort of kind of process, a similar technique or a similar model to what you are doing as well, which is always good, especially if you're a sort of kind of private practitioner like me, who you may not have people within your organization, other career professionals to bounce ideas off. So are you somebody that's perhaps maybe new to the sector? Perhaps maybe you work independently as a private practitioner. Maybe you don't work independently and you work within the educational setting, but you're the only career professional who's been tasked with the job of providing a quality careers intervention into program. And so think about how can what Chris and I are going to be sharing relate to the work that you are doing. And so when Liz talks about the three-stage model, stage one is obviously about establishing needs, agreeing purpose, agreeing ground rules. So because I work privately and my clients pay me a lot of money to work in, sort of kind of privately with me or in small group settings, it's really important that very quickly and very early on in my interactions, I establish, a need, a purpose, and some ground rules. Because I don't know about anybody else, but people don't always have a clear idea of what coaching, career coaching is, and what that intervention and what that journey will look like. And sometimes, the sort of kind of most popular sort of feedback that I get is that at school they had some interaction, a nominal interaction with some career professional, and that's pretty much it. And so, for me, I'm working with highly motivated, driven, ambitious professionals looking to stop struggling and start thriving. So they want either one-to-one accountability, or they're looking to do a self-paced program that will result in them achieving transformation they desire. So we establish that very early on in the interactions that I have with my clients. So as a result, it's then co-creating with that client and creating that sort of action planning aspect of those interactions. And I don't ever do a single interaction. All my interactions are sort of a minimum of 6 interactions that I have. So I appreciate that maybe you're watching this and you're thinking, oh, Sabiha, I only get to have one conversation with my client group that I work with. How do I make that work? And I know Chris has got some tips and some ideas around that. So, I'll come to that, Chris, in a second. And so stage 2 then is all about where Liz talks about in her briefing paper, understanding the client story. And again, this part is, I really enjoy it, because listening to where the client has been, what they're trying to do, and helping them and getting them to agree their needs, including sort of kind of their career management strengths, is a real, I spend quite a lot of time around this sort of kind of stage with my clients, because I create and I use an environment where my clients can share in a very authentic way their story. Now, what are some of the challenges that I face? And perhaps you do too, join in the chat as always, is resistance. Some of them want change, but are resistant to that change. And so my job is helping them break down those barriers. And I use models like Grow, or the Clear models are really great for sort of kind of breaking down those resistance. And then finally, we've talked about stage 3, which is about addressing needs. And that's about, taking action, agreeing and committing to a plan of action, recording outcomes. And for my clients, because I have go on this journey with them, I'm able to sort of monitor and see what progress, what action they are taking, what action they aren't taking, challenging them, questioning, understanding why, what prevented them from taking that action. And then also as well, I like to use motivational and inspirational sort of kind of interactive conversations with my clients to keep them moving and progressing towards the goals that they have. I'm going to leave it there because I think I've covered quite a broad picture based on those sort of kind of 3 stages. Chris, how about you? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think the point about context is really important, as you say, in terms of the type of clients we're working with. Is it a one-off intervention? Is it multiple interventions, maybe in a coaching program? A lot of people have kind of been mentioning this in the chat, that the idea of kind of a straightforward future-facing action plan might not work for some people. We've got a couple of examples of maybe individuals who are neurodivergent, and actually, that method didn't work for them. So they had to try sort of backwards action planning. What did that look like? And some really good kind of recommendations generally in the chat around different ways to approach action planning, and some really good books as well. So I can definitely testify, to Leanne's recommendation here about David Clutterbuck's book. Really, really useful. We'll keep kind of surfacing some of the general kind of comments in the chat, but I suppose, from my perspective, I think, the context really matters. Most of my kind of careers interventions tend to be kind of one-off. So we sort of don't really know whether we're going to see that individual again. And I think action can sometimes feel really hard, as you said to me, because from a client perspective, I work with a lot of particularly kind of students who are maybe midway through their degrees. And often they're not 100% sure why they've kind of booked onto a careers appointment. So sometimes I think there can be a temptation both for them and maybe for you as a practitioner to I guess enjoy the possibility element, the exploration element, and think, okay, that's great. And they often think, oh, I like the possibility side, but actually the taking action side is sometimes what people kind of veer away from. So I suppose kind of there's a couple of things that I try and do. One is sort of around right at the very beginning, a bit like you were saying, around establishing need and really kind of understanding what are you sort of wanting to get from this? What would kind of success look like for you? That I think is really important, that almost having that kind of menu of service of, what would a successful kind of conversation today look like for you? What would you want to be taking away from it? Where do you feel it might leave you afterwards that would be kind of a positive for you, and would feel like you were kind of moving forward? So I think actually establishing that at the very beginning, is really helpful. Not necessarily saying you have to have X number of steps you take away from today, but actually thinking, what is the purpose of this? Why have you come here today? What do you actually want to get out of it? And I've definitely found sometimes that's easier to do sort of at the beginning, kind of setting the table, I guess, for later, rather than kind of coming to it sort of more towards the end. And I think a lot of the suggestions that people have made in the chat are absolutely spot on. Leanne's talked about that idea of not letting, the idea of moving forward or planning, for action, steer the conversation, so that you're thinking about how can I basically get this person to come up with some next steps, but actually having that process steer the conversation. Having the outcome of the conversation steer what those actions look like. So making it very much kind of client-centered rather than sort of practitioner-centered. So some really good kind of advice coming through in the chat. We're going to show some sort of tools that we both use, or talk a little bit about some of the tools that we use next. But yeah, I would say I think it's that for me, certainly with the one-off interventions, it's very much about how do we kind of take things from possibility to reality. And I think often, as I'll show with some of the tools we look at today, for me, kind of it's small steps. I'm a very biased to action person. Anything is action, if you feel like it's moving you forward.
Exactly.
And I think
Progress.
there's some really good tools you can use for those small steps, as you're saying. So yeah, that's probably where I sit with that. So I think, as always, we're rapidly running out of time. I'm going to kind of wrap up some of these comments on screen because we haven't got time to kind of address them all directly. But I guess to be a big question is, we've talked about the challenges. What do we sort of do, I guess, to address those? So kind of coming back to you, what I guess sort of tools and techniques do you find tend to be really effective when it comes to that idea of sort of addressing need? And I guess, as you said, sort of moving people from a position where perhaps they're kind of not sure about how to move forward to then feeling more positive about moving forward.
100%, 100%. And again, joining the conversation, even if we don't get time today to share them, the comments are there for others to read. And and I know if you're anything like me, you like to scroll through the comments out of you've watched a piece of content. So definitely joining the conversation, keep on, engaging with us. I'm going to start off firstly by answering that question, Chris, to talk to specifically young career professionals. What do I mean by that? I mean, not necessarily young in age, but young in terms of to the industry. Perhaps you have just joined, perhaps maybe you had a different career and you've now pivoted and you've joined this amazing, wonderful industry, and you are a young professional early on in your career's journey as a professional. And my tip would be to learn to tune into your intuition. It was something that was shared with me many, many years ago. So I've been in the sector now for well over a decade. And it was something that I sort of learned how to do. It wasn't something even that was taught to me through the sort of kind of academic sort of kind of theory stuff. It was more just sort of when I was talking to a former mentor of mine who said, Sabiha, you're really intuitive when it comes to reading a room and engaging with and reading your client's body language. And this is more so this tip for when you're doing one-to-one. I appreciate that when you're doing group coaching or group intervention and you've got maybe 5, 10, 15, 20, or in the double digit numbers, it's a lot harder to sort of understand and read a room. But I'm talking so this tip is more for sort of one-to-one, and that is that learn to tune into your intuition, because more often than not, if you're picking something up, and I have found that this one tip has served me so well, because sometimes I might have a client that comes in and says something, but I can read from the body language that they're just not quite believing, they're not quite believing the own words that are coming out their own mouths. And so I find myself just gently probing and challenging. And I'm known as the no nonsense coach because I do tend to call my clients out on their BS if I sense that that's what they're sort of kind of feeding me. And more, and sort of I have a very sort of kind of straightforward coaching style and methodology. And I'm going to be coming on to one of the tools that I developed that helps me enhance my coaching sort of interaction that benefits, that gets the maximum benefit for my clients. And so, you also have to decide as well is that what's your coaching style? Because my style perhaps is very different from the way Chris does his interventions and his interactions. And I'm sure viewers watching us right now, you'll have your own style. So lean into that, discover what that is, and then lean into that, because your clients will benefit from that and will value that as well. So as Chris said, we've talked a lot about sort of, the challenges, or at least some of the challenges, of sort of kind of moving on. For me, okay, and this is where I'm giving a shout out to Leanne and Kiara. Their book, which was the Creative Career Coaching book, I found that really useful and really beneficial, where they explored the ideas of positive and one of the tools and tips that they gave in the book, there's many tips, and I highly recommend it, but one of the tips that they recommended was positive rephrasing. And I'll give you an example of what they mean by that and how I use it in the context of my practice. So, for example, I might have a client that comes and sits in front of me and says, oh, I can't go to university because no one in my family has been. So what I do is I rephrase that to say, I will be the first in my family to go to university. And questions around where are you now and where do you want to be is also, and scaling that and looking at ways of how to do that is also another great sort of kind of technique that I like to embrace. And one tool that I have developed based on, as I say, many years of working in the sector, and one of the things that I sort of realized was that I'm going to give a really snippet into this. So if you're interested in learning more, please do reach out to me after the show. And that is that mindset is a huge thing for one of the challenges that my clients face. They're stuck. They know they don't want to be where they are right now, which is point A. They know they want to get to point B. And for some clients, they know exactly what that point B is. Others have no idea what that point B is, but yet their mindset is preventing them. They're unhealthy and sort of toxic, sort of kind of thought patterns and beliefs are preventing them from actually living their best career. And so I developed this technique, which I called the 3H I Am Thriving Biohack, which is a 90-second biohack. And it's fun, it's powerful, it's simple, it can be used with all levels and all types of clients. And I know this because I practiced it when I was developing the technique with my 4-year-old nephews and nieces. And it's a 3-step process. And within 90 seconds, it helps get your clients into career flow. without the struggle. And there are many, many benefits, but the top 3 benefits that my clients share with me of why they love this technique is because it helps them stay focused, so it gets them results. It stops them struggling so that they can start thriving in their career, and it helps them build a joyful career without the anxiety. So those are just my top 3 things. I could talk about this forever, but I can see we're already running out of time with the show. And I know Chris has got some amazing things. So Chris, over to you. What amazing tools and techniques do you use?
Well, I don't know if they're amazing, but they've sometimes worked in the past. So no, I think, everything that's kind of coming through sort of in the comments, I think really kind of backing up a lot of the stuff that you're saying around, the importance of mindset, the importance of kind of reflecting body language, that intuition that you talked about, not just kind of following a pro forma, or a typical kind of action plan, but actually thinking about, what is it from what I'm hearing that the client's most likely to need, and how do we kind of provide that? How do we work through that? Are there different ways that we can kind of maybe present these next steps, or kind of come up with a way to sort of visualize these so that it's easier, it's a bit more digestible? And so I think that's really kind of coming through in sort of what's coming back from the comments. As I sort of mentioned a couple of minutes ago, I think for me, big thing, certainly with kind of clients where we're maybe working, we have like one intervention with them. Although more recently I've been kind of doing some graduate career coaching, is actually what are those small steps? What are those kind of bite-sized steps that you might take that will move you forward? And maybe not necessarily towards a really kind of rigid plan, but just this idea of, okay, how am I moving in a direction that, yeah, I'm going to feel more confident about my career management. I'm going to feel more confident about my options. What does that kind of look like? So there's sort of a few tools that I'd like to share very, very quickly. And I'm just going to share the screen so people can see these. You might not be able to see them really well, which is fine, because they are just going to be illustrative examples. So the first one I want to share is around Miro board. So I think I've talked about Miro board in a couple of the shows before. This is kind of what it is. It's a tool for educators. It's basically like a giant kind of drawing board where you can drop loads of different sort of text on, post-it notes. You can do different shapes. You can have all sorts of different things on there. It's great, really good for kind of mind mapping, planning things out. I use it for kind of group sessions, but it's also great for again, kind of like action plans or sort of visual ways to sort of share thoughts, share reflections after intervention with the client. So this was one that actually took place with a graduate coaching client I had over the summer. They I think, undertook 6 sessions in total. And what we did at the end was we talked about, okay, what's changed? Sort of looking back, what's changed over those 6 sessions, and what do you feel has changed? Use this as a bit of a kind of a confidence score, how confident they were feeling in their career. And getting them to kind of put the post-its on about where they felt they were after each session, and leading into how they were going to take the learnings from that and sort of take that further. So if you've not come across Miro, it can be a really useful one for that idea of kind of visually presenting the idea of action plans and sort of moving forward. And another example of that you may or may not have come across is this idea of something called the Cantrell ladder, which this looks a little bit more formal, more spreadsheety. It's really, really easy to use, and it's all built on this idea of small steps. So the idea of having kind of things that you want to work on. Where are you now? Where would you like to be in the future? Giving yourself kind of a score from 1 to 10, and you could structure that in any way you wanted. But then really looking at what small steps could you take to move towards that score that you want to get towards. Now, again, this might be for clients that you're working with where you've got more interactions with them, you have more time with them, where you can potentially influence that. But it's also one where people can start to actually kind of put down, what might progress look like to me, and visualize it so it feels a bit more real, but also feels achievable because they're smaller steps. So as I say, I'm very much a bias to action person. I think people really overestimate what we mean by action. It can be really, really small things, and moving forward can be a really, really small positive thing. So I think that's kind of these type of tools work really, really well for me, I find, with a lot of the clients I work with. But the other thing I just want to mention really quickly before we finish is around kind of short one-off interventions. And that's something where a lot of us have been finding ChatGPT, other AI tools can be really useful. Main reason being the scaffolding. So the great thing about systems like ChatGPT is you can share the chat threads. So if you're using these kind of AI tools to basically work with a client, help them kind of expand their career exploration, career research, instead of them kind of going away with, oh, I think I remember what I did, they've actually got that thread that they can jump straight in and build on and remember all the prompts that you came up with and all the things that you talked about. So if you haven't been using ChatGPT for these purposes, I can really recommend that. It's a great kind of way of scaffolding maybe some of the different things that you might look through in terms of careers research and exploration. So a few different examples from me of just ways that tend to work for me when I'm working with clients to help people move forward, small sort of bite-sized steps.
Love that. Do you know what, Chris? And the chat box has completely blown up and we're out of time. So I'm not even going to be able to sort of kind of address, but so many sort of kind of comments. What I'm going to say is, for those of you that are requesting more information, keep following. LinkedIn, Chris, right, is our sort of kind of favorite platform for both of us. So, connect with us, follow us, follow the CDI page as well, where these shows get posted and the recordings of these shows get posted so that you can come back to the show, and the content and the resources and the links that we've shared with you today is definitely sort of going to be my top tip. But Chris, I've got to say, I am loving how you're using. I've not tried using ChatGPT. I use it on many, many different levels, but not in the way that you've just described. Has anyone else's mind just been blown there and gone, "Ooh, okay, interesting," and perhaps your mind's tingling and thinking, "How can I use that now?" in a similar or different type of way to the way Chris has just shared with us, because I know my brain's thinking. Lovely SEAL theme session. Thank you both. Oh, you're welcome, Leanne. Thank you for being live and joining us today. So as I say, we're out of time for today, but keep the conversation going. On the various different platforms. These shows are really just as to inspire your CPD. We're not here. We don't think we're going to solve all the sort of kind of themes that we talk about. It's just to get the conversation going. So I'm going to head on over now to the news section. I'm going to thank you all for joining us today and interacting with us and sharing your ideas. So 3 stories that I have picked out for today's CDI news. So the CDI, I don't know if anybody noticed, released a teaser video early a few days ago about what the new website is going to look like. Now, there has been some delays. I know some of you are probably thinking, hang on a second, wasn't it supposed to be launched last month? Yes, it was. But the CDI team are really keen to make sure that when the launch happens, it's as good as it can be, and so they're just tweaking a few more things before they release. So head on over to the YouTube channel. There's the video there that you can take a look at. Booking is now open. This is my pick number 2 for booking your place for the CDI conference for career professionals in 2023, and it will be taking place on Wednesday, the 6th of December, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and it's going to be online, so you don't have to panic or even leave your home to join. And there are joining in details. You can head on over to the website, as well as information about the keynote speakers and the panel speakers as well. And I believe there are going to be up to 28 different workshops covering 7 different themes to help you enhance and develop your CPD and continuous professional development. And then finally, story number 3 is in early October. Our very own CEO, David Morgan, will be championing the profession in person at the Labour Party conference. You may have seen this in the update that David sends out once a month, and he's going to be in Liverpool meeting with as many people as he possibly can, hearing firsthand the key speeches, and also utilising the conference as a way to enhance the amazing work that, yes, you and our fellow career professionals do, and how we add value to the economy, to people's lives. But also as it's a brilliant opportunity to build and further relationship with a host of organizations to further develop the importance of career information, advice and guidance. And that's my news wrap up. Chris, what did you pick for us today?
Yeah, thanks, Spear. So yeah, 3 very quick stories I'm gonna rattle through before we finish today. So, the first one is a great LinkedIn thread that you may or may not have come across already, from Mark Saunders, around how will kind of generative artificial intelligence impact the career development sector. What's really nice about this is it's kind of a live sort of organic conversation taking place in the comments on LinkedIn. Lots of stuff in there, not just about kind of like practical predictions about how AI might impact the career development sector, but also stuff kind of that I guess is a little bit more sort of existential around, well, who's going to be funding artificial intelligence for career development? How might that impact us in terms of, the jobs that we do? How might it be equitable or not equitable for the clients that we work with? Are we kind of being a bit too broad brush when we talk about AI? Do we need to be a little bit more targeted in terms of how we're talking about it? So there's some absolutely brilliant comments in there. Really recommend people checking that out via the link and getting involved, sharing your own thoughts as well. Second story is a really good podcast series that's just been released from Pete Robertson, Susan Meldrum, the team at Edinburgh Napier University, all about career information and kind of making sense of career information. So 4 parts to the series, worth having a listen if you get the chance. That's just dropped, I think, this week. So do check that out. All of the episodes are available on the link that I've just shared on screen. And finally, a little bit of a teaser as well. So we talked about the newsletter earlier on the week that I produced, The Week in Careers. I'm going to be writing about this actually this Friday. But if you didn't see the webinar last week, Skills Builder have just released this new Careers Explorer tool. And essentially, it's a way to look at the skills profile based on the 8 essential skills that Skills Builder use for 1,000 jobs. So all 1,000 jobs that are included in the Standard Occupational Classification Extended Edition. So this is the big data set that essentially a lot of different data providers use. And it's mapping the Skills Builder essential skills. So you can actually see for each job, including career development professionals, what is the skills profile for that job, in areas like communication, creativity, etc. So really worth checking out. Could be a really cool new tool for careers professionals to use. Highly recommend having a look if you've not come across it yet. But that brings us really nicely to the end of the show for today, our first show back for season 10. We are going to be back on Wednesday, the 4th of October at the normal time of 12 o'clock with Ben Rowland, who's the author of Understanding Apprenticeships, A Student's Guide. And we're going to be talking all about debunking those kind of linear arguments around university versus apprenticeships, and generally how a lot of educational pathways don't get the airtime they deserve. So that's what we're going to be tackling. But until then, we hope you have a wonderful fortnight, a wonderful rest of the week, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time. Take care.